There you go.
Well, welcome to the February 20th, 2024 session of Tangerine SDR and Hamside technical session with Clementine SDR information. So my name is Dave, KV0S, and this week I've been going, I have to thank Michael Howen. He got my data uploading to Bill's receiver. So both WWV and my uh, 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 essentially that stuff. And so that's about it for me this week. We had a funeral in the family that we had to deal with last week. So anyway, next on the list, we have Nathaniel, W2NF. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
Thanks, Steve. Everything's going well here. I'm back from being out last week. Things went well there. So I think things are coming along just fine. It's just very, very busy. There's lots of different things going on. I guess most important to this group is I'm meeting with the Hamside workshop committee tomorrow morning to go over the program, the agenda. We got quite a few nice abstracts submitted, so I think we'll be hopefully finalizing the agenda tomorrow and then putting that draft agenda on the web and then try to get everyone's travel support out there to help people get to the conference. So that's moving along nicely. And then the other nice thing is I've been working on this geophysical research letters paper about large-scale traveling atmospheric disturbances, medium-scale traveling atmospheric disturbances, and it pulls together a whole bunch of different data sets, including RBN WhisperNet PSK reporter data and super darn data and GPS TEC data and data from the middle atmosphere. I finally got that manuscript submitted this weekend. So that was a really, really big deal. Also, I just want to say I'm really happy with the progress that this group has made. I think it's just fantastic that we are now having people submit grape type of data from this RX888 and Clementine project to the central database. I think from where we were about a year ago, I didn't think we would be seeing this sort of progress, but I think it's really great to actually see this in time for the eclipse. So just really, really good. Back to net.
Yes, and I wanted to thank both Michael Howland and Rob Robinette for putting that information, figuring out how to do it, and then taking all the Whisper Demon
Yeah.
running programs and
Yeah,
uploading that data. So
I
that,
totally agree. They've done an absolutely fantastic job, and really Rob Robinette is the one who last Hamvention said, this K9Q radio is the way to go, and I can't thank him and the rest of the people on here who've been contributing to that enough. So thank you so much.
yes. So next on the list is Jim K4BSE. Go ahead, Jim.
Good evening, all. Well, I had some problems over the weekend and late last week with my MSI experiments. The two grape experiments had a problem because my Raspberry Pi power supply for the original grape experiment crashed and burned. So it took me a day or two to get that replaced because I didn't have another one that I could plug in. And then I discovered a ground that had gotten lifted in the process of troubleshooting on the grape board. And we got that fixed. I think everything is running fine now. I have been spending what little time I have on a radio, um, working on another Raspberry Pi project, trying to use it as network attached storage, and running into a problem, but I'll get past it. I did do a presentation to a neighboring ham club last week, and that was a lot of fun. That's about it. Back to NetK4BSE.
Well, very good. Next on the list is Michael, AA8K. Go ahead.
Thanks very much. Greetings to everyone listening. Back to you, Dave.
Okay. And next on the list is Dale, KS4NS. Go ahead, Dale. Dale, you have any comments?
He's muted.
Okay, well, doesn't seem to have any comments, or he can come back to us later if he has some. Next on the list is Dave, KD0EAG. Go ahead, Dave.
Hello. Not a lot of excitement here. Been working with the Grape 2 people a bit, but mostly I think I turned over magnetometer code to them mostly. Otherwise, I'm just plugging away at my environment. So, and some other things, starting to think about Clementine a little bit more, and some questions I had about it. But otherwise, not much of excitement. Over to y'all.
Okay. Okay, next on the list is Dave, WB9YIG. Dave, are you there? He was just there and he walked away. So I guess he doesn't want to make any comments. I'll come back to him later. Next is Dave, N1HAC. Go ahead, Dave.
Good evening, everyone. Other than being a little cold over here, of course, it's supposed to get down into single digits. Probably should have been 20 below this time of year, but that's the political comment for the evening. Then, yeah, we're madly trying to get our AM Doppler receivers assembled and sighted, getting ready for the eclipse, and making plans to make it to the workshop. And I've been doing some work on the ARCS 888 that I have, getting the external reference brought into it and putting in a switch so I can run it standalone as well, without having to open it up. Oh, I'm putting some added heat sink with a little fan. I found a 50 millimeter fan that's rated 1.5 watts. When it's running on 12 volts, it's a screamer. But at 5 volts, it seems to push some good air. So I'm probably going to use that with it. So back to net.
Okay. Next on the list is Franco, K4VZ. Go ahead, Franco.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dave. This week I've been working a little bit with John Hackerman, trying to help him with the much more this was GERT board to be able to synthesize different frequencies. I also was watching. I suggest you guys interested that the FOSDEM 2024 conference that was a couple of weeks ago. There were some good talks, especially a couple of them that. One is similar to what KNQ Radio does, and I think it's a good thing to watch. Back to you, Dave.
Very good. Thanks for those links. Next on the list is Jay, WB8SPI. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, just had to get through the mysteries of WebEx there. Nothing really new here, ham radio wise to report, and just looking forward to the next meeting. Nathaniel, question please. You mentioned travel funds. I'm assuming that's just for speakers and invited guests, or can anyone apply for that? What's the policy on that, please?
Yeah, it's typically for people who are presenting in some way.
Oh, okay. Yep, just wanted to clarify that. Okay,
Yeah.
we're good. Take care, everybody. 7-3. And
you.
I'll be reading the mail here. Oh, yeah, and for the March meeting of my local radio club, the Hazel Park Amateur Radio Club here outside Detroit, we're going to have the WX2R. The PIO for the SEQP is going to be the guest speaker. So that's the same group that you spoke to, Nathaniel. So anyway, 7-3 all. I'll be reading the mail. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Okay. Next on the list is John, WI6P. Go ahead, John. Oh, muted. Oh, you did. You muted it, unmuted it, muted it again.
Says, okay, there we go.
There
Got
we
it.
go.
Finally. I obviously have a lot of learning to do, but I'm here to listen and learn. I'll just say good evening to everyone and back to Nat. Thanks.
Okay, well, welcome. Thank you. Next on the list is Jonathan Rizzo, KC3EEY. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hi, everybody. I haven't really been doing a lot of VLF related work this week, a lot of non-VLF related work. However, there has been some really good progress made, some updates made to GPS daemon, working with the maintainer of GPS daemon. What he did this time was he was able to fix a problem, a bug in the code where it would not write pulse per second events to to shared memory for NTP daemon to utilize. And that was a bug in his code with the Trimble binary protocol, decoding it. So he was able to fix that, and not only fix that, but he discovered that if the positioning ever got messed up for whatever reason, and the receiver knew about it, the Trimble GPS receiver knew about it, it wouldn't necessarily report that it has a bad fix. So he's been able to work around that and be able to detect it, even though that the receiver doesn't really report it. And he also made some general initialization fixes and fixes to the survey code. The performance in low signal conditions, at least for survey information, should be much better. So he did quite a lot of work on the Trimble binary protocol driver, and he is working on the SMTX. So or he finished with the SMTX, so he's going to do some testing on the SMT and the rest of his Trimble units. He has an SMT 360, which is the current, and the Res 720. That's the dual frequency currently supported receiver. So he's making a lot of really good progress, which is really good. That's all I have. Back to the net.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Next on the list is Lawrence. Any comments, Lawrence?
First time in the meeting, so no comments from me, but hello to everyone.
Well, hello and welcome, and hopefully you'll find it interesting and maybe come back.
Absolutely, thank you very much.
Okay, and next in the list, I'm going to jump down and get Tom McDermott, N5EG. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, good evening, Dave. Not much to report this week. Not much activity on this project. Back to the group.
Okay. Next on the list is Phil Karn, K9Q. Go ahead, Phil.
Okay, I wish you'd do this in some kind of order so I know when you're about to
Well,
go.
I use the participant list, but then when people turn different functions on and off, it changes the order in the list. But if you want to watch on the participant list, I generally do it in that order.
Okay, where's the participant list?
If you go down to the bottom and you click on participants where it says 18.
Oh yeah, there we go. Oh, that list. Okay. Well, I
And
show
they
up at
all,
the top then.
well, the only trouble is when you turn your microphone or your video on, you jump different places in the list.
Yeah, so that list is not very meaningful. Oh well.
Well, it just helps me keep track that I've called
Yeah.
on everybody.
Okay. Anyway, not much to report here. I just been busy with other stuff, catching up on like medical, nothing serious, and just catching up on a bunch of medical referrals that are like more time consuming than anything. But anyway, so I'm around here if somebody will ask questions. Other than that, I'll just turn it back.
Okay, so next on the list, and Rob, your ears must have been burning. Oh, just a minute. I see Art. I don't think I called on him. Art, KD60. Go ahead, Art.
Hi, Art, KD60. I've been visiting a little bit on some of the grape lists and decided I should come over and see how the other half works.
Oh.
So I'm just listening out and looking to see if there's any place where I can make a contribution.
Okay. And I also saw that I didn't call on Dylan. Dylan, are you there?
Yes, I am. Don't really have anything to say, just hello guys, and hope you
Okay.
guys had a good week. I'll send it back to net control.
Okay, and then I have Dale. I called on him earlier. KS4NS. Dale, you want to make a comment?
I sure do. Are you able to see me? I'm new to Zoom, so
I can see your name and your hand up, but I don't see your face. I saw your face a while ago.
okay.
Turn your camera back on. Anyway. And I did call on Dave, WB9YIG. Did you want to make any comments, Dave?
Oh, let me get it on there. No, I just saw that there was a meeting tonight and decided I'd pop in and see what was going on. Finally got my grape cooking, and not sure it's doing 100% good, but I think it'll probably fly.
Okay, very good. And I think I'm going to call on Rob Robinette next. Rob's one who always has lots of things to report. And I want to thank you and Michael for getting my data up to Bill's server now.
You're welcome. And that's what I've been focused on for the last, it seems like 2 months, but really the last few weeks, we've been trying to get sites like yours to be reporting, the Whisper Demon sites, to be reporting grape data. And I think we're up to 8 sites that are reporting. At this point, the major problem has to do with being able to auto log in to Bill's server. That we use SFTP, which is built upon SSH, to do the file transfers. And I guess the grape servers don't use that, just use a regular FTP. And the SFTP mechanism, if it fails for whatever reason, timeout or something, I'm still trying to uncover what causes this, but only 2 or 3 failures to log in. And Bill's server then puts me on a fail to ban and blocks all communications with the IP address. So this
There
is
are two different protocols, SFTP and there's H is SFTP, and they work differently. And LFTP that he's using has some documentation about that.
Yeah, well, the LFTP, maybe I'm going to have to switch the uploads because I just have not been able to, many of these sites, like at the moment, let's see, I'm looking at one that I just brought up, um, has a gigabit Ethernet connection, but for some reason it fell into some errors. It might be my code, of course, but for example, at Bill Engleby's site, he has his connection to the internet is through Starlink. So there's seconds of latency in his when I try to SSH from his receiver, his Whisper Daemon receiver, to the Grape server. So I had to increase the timeouts dramatically so that I wouldn't time out. And then the fact that I time out trying to SSH to him causes his server to think that I've failed to log in. So then after 2 or 3 of those, his server says, I'm going to ban you. You're a bad actor. So that's kind of the major remaining issue in getting it. But of the 14 sites that I have, Whisper Daemon sites that have RX 888s, 8 of them have been are configured and have been able to log. And most of those have uploaded on the order of 20 to 30 days of observations. So I was at first concerned that the size of our uploads was much lower than those from the regular Grape sites. But it turns out from what I learned from Bill is the Raspberry Pi, he can't do much compression on the observation data, whereas the Whisper Daemon sites have, in general, lots of CPU. So we turn up the compression ratios. So even though we're uploading 10 bands of time bands, our uploads are about 26 to 27 megabytes, whereas the single or 4-channel Grapes upload 33 megabytes for 1 or 4 channels. I don't know how they're configured. So, but in general, the infrastructure works, and it's just the biggest challenge now is this failure to log in reliably and to do the uploads. So that's my major focus on that. I've been trying to get off of working on Whisper Daemon Grape support and on to preparing the Whisper songs for to be sent out to Michael, and I think there's Michael who is in Detroit has offered to host the Whisper Sound. So that's my plans. So I'll go back to net. We can talk about more stuff later.
Okay, very good. And you weren't here at the beginning, but there was a big thank you for bringing RX88 and Whisper Daemon as a alternative data collection method at Hamvention last year. And Nathaniel said that, and I wanted to make sure you knew that he's
okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very grateful to be part of this project, and I hope that that having this in place when the Clementine becomes available, all of this Whisper Daemon and Grape support will be there and can work with it. Will be well debugged and ready to be deployed. But certainly in time for the eclipse, we should have at least 14 US sites, and maybe I could bring up a couple. I'll probably bring up a site in the Canary Islands and 1 or 2 sites in Europe, probably one up in Scotland who has superb, he's got a superb site for capturing signals from the US. He's up near Inverness. And so he has a 888. These are 888 sites, Whisper Daemon 888 sites. There's probably 20 of them or more of them now running Whisper Daemon and 888. So one of the issues that I want to discuss, and perhaps we can do this in the later discussion, is the interaction between Whisper Daemon and the K9Q radio. There's some areas of I think where we could tune up that interaction. So go back to you.
Okay, I believe I called on everybody on the list. I don't see anybody that I seem to have missed that I called on at least once. And so now we're open for general discussion.
Yeah, this is Tom. Rob, one of the issues with Starlink is it uses a protocol called CGNAT, Carrier Gateway Network Address Translation. And that causes a timer to be started on any UDP or TCP session. And if that timer times out, the IP address of the Starlink into the connection can change. And I think it's a 2-minute timer for UDP and like a 20 or 30-minute timer for TCP connections. So there's a possibility that if you don't have a keep alive, you can time out and change addresses.
Okay, well, I'm just doing a simple SFTP transfer. Typically, I've been limiting the upload bandwidth to 1 megabit by default because I don't want to, saturate the upstream link from Whisper Daemon sites. It's configurable; you can override it, but I left it at a megabit by default. So it takes about at that data rate, if the uplink sustains it, that takes about 3 minutes to perform the upload the 30 megabytes of data. What is that? 240 seconds, something like that. So I don't think that any of these. What happens is it falls into the error condition is that his server issues a reject. Port 22 is a reject. So the packets are still reaching his server, but his server is choosing because it's triggered fail to ban, then puts him on the reject list in IP tables, and then he's tuned it. The default was he'd turn off, he'd block that IP address for 24 hours. Bill has changed it back to the default 10 minutes, so I could go back while I'm, in this process of deployment. I can go back and debug things more easily, but it may be that just is this SFTP transfer, although it's really easy and very, secure, completely secure, that perhaps the policy at the University of Alabama IT department that requires fail-to-ban just interferes with it, which to me is kind of counterproductive, because if we fall back to an FTP, that's a completely unsecure protocol. And so to get around this fail-to-ban thing, we're going to fall back to a less secure protocol. And this is, it's SFTP is built on SSH. To my knowledge, any secure transfers that I'm aware of, other than VPN and that kind of stuff, but any of this kind of connection-based security, all is kind of based on top of SSH.
No.
And okay, not true.
I think not.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to emphasize.
Yeah.
Is that OpenSSH and LFTP use completely different SFTP. Well, there's a slightly different name for one of them, but early in the early days of SFTP, there was a debate over whether it was over SSL or over something else. I don't know what. But
Okay.
two of them are entirely incompatible with each other.
Okay.
I tried to tell Bill that early on, and he was, a lot of Windows people are more used to LFTP, but OpenSSH is pretty much the standard in the Unix Linux world.
Yeah.
And LFTP is it's a good product made by a Russian guy somewhere that has been around a long time, but it uses a different, and if you go to the site for that, I'm almost sure, at least there were some years ago, my brother and I had this argument. Is where it comes down to. And it worked. If you go to that site, there's an explanation. And I do remember the debate about this years ago. But they just don't work the same. And I
Okay.
don't think.
Okay. If I can be directed to, how the great clients communicate, upload theirs, and look at a code snippet, then I'll look up LFTP. I mean, it can't be that hard to. It's a single line of code. I mean, right now I'm running. I got to believe that it can't be all that different. It's
What's the problem here? An IP address is changing? Is that all?
No, I don't think so. I think it's timeouts. I think that connection timeouts are triggering failures to the and the failures during the connection, the SFTP connection, are triggering fail to ban.
Okay,
and then once fail to ban, right?
Is it using UDP or TCP?
That's a TCP based. All right. I mean, it's
Turn off
I'm
fail
pretty
to
sure.
ban. It includes, it doesn't do much anyway.
Yeah,
Well, I don't think we don't have control over that. I don't think, Phil.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You're
key
running
is
it on your own machines on both ends, right?
No, we're not. That's the problem. Is at the far end, it's a University of Alabama IT department computer cluster. So they have their security requirements that are defined by University of Alabama IT department. That's my understanding. And so we have to fit within whatever their, the limitations dictated by that IT department.
Well, broken, you can always build your own, but
So if the underlying protocol is UDP, then Starlink imposes a 30-second timeout on connection start and 120-second timeout on inactivity. If it's TCP, then they're quite a bit longer.
Yeah, I've had these failures though, not only on Starlink. I just brought up N3AGE on Long Island, who has a great site today, and I just logged on to him, and I could see that I'm in the fail to ban mode, and he has a 100 megabit upload, fiber modem connection. So it isn't a matter of just Starlink. Starlink just exacerbated one dimension of the possible failure space and exercised it. And I think that in his case, it was timeouts, which I think I fixed by just extending the timeout. And but I think there are other mechanisms, failure mechanisms, that are in place. And they could be on.
Does Starlink do IPv6 yet?
No, it does not.
Yeah.
Well, you guys might be interested in 44 net.
well, I don't think this is a matter of IP addresses changing. I don't think that, because that didn't happen in N3AGE this afternoon. His IP
Well, it sounds like
address
another
is
problem would be, these timers that are getting in the way too. I mean,
that could be a problem on Starlink connectors, but that isn't a problem at AG3C. And the symptoms are the same, but the causes could be different. And this is the nature of going through I mean, you guys have been dealing with this problem, distributing the grape software on the Pis. Is you go and display, install stuff and out in the field, and you uncover certain conditions that you never saw at your house. And that's the mode I'm in. Is I've got 6 sites that are completely reliable, including both of them near WWV, and then I've got and some of them, 2 or 3 of them, weren't reliable until more recently, until I fixed them. They uncovered bugs in my code. fixed it. So maybe it's fixable in my code. I don't know yet. It's just the process I'm in. So and I don't I think that I've tried to, as much as I can, emulate how the grape does everything. And I guess this is pointing to me that I just ought to emulate how grape does uploads as well. Which I I think Franco was the one who suggested, I think, suggested using SFTP, which I'm very familiar with. And to me, it seemed like a great choice. But
I think
uh,
you have to install LFTP on the grape for it to work.
well, that's not hard.
On machine that's pushing back.
Yeah, well, installing library a package isn't the problem. It's knowing how to use it.
Well, there's that too, but it seems it works from some settings.
Yeah, I will go look at it. I don't know. There's a GitHub grape repository where I could find the way I could find my way to the grape sources. Is there? That was a rhetorical question.
Yes, there is, but I don't know that's what you're. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Seems to me seems that if LFTP works for all of the Grape 1 and Grape 2 sites, then Whisper Demon Grape ought to use this. Excuse me a second, I gotta.
Franco, were you at Orlando? I didn't see you there.
No, I wasn't. Did you go there?
Yeah, I was there. I hung out
If
with
I'd
the
known, I
RDC
would have.
people, and I
Yeah, I didn't
actually,
know you were there.
yeah, it was not as big as I expected. I guess they're still recovering after the pandemic, but I actually got
Yeah,
time to see everything, even though I go to these things now just to talk to people.
yeah, it's just a couple of hours from me. I didn't know, I would have driven
Oh,
down there.
I didn't think to ask. I assumed it's close enough that you'd be going.
Oh no, I mean not. I mean not. I mean it's. If I can, I'd rather go to Dayton. I mean to the convention. That seems to be the place to go.
Yeah. It was a three-way trip. I went first to Maryland, DC to talk for a panel session at the NTIA sponsored on spectrum management. Then I visited my family for most of the week, then went down to Orlando. And when I left, the plane took off at the moment the kickoff happened in the Super Bowl. It's like everybody around me is watching it.
Yeah.
So a little bit of cell phone bandwidth.
Yeah. Well, I assume it was probably a broadcast streams they were looking at.
Oh,
Well, in the old days, the captain would get on periodically, to announce the score. So at least I didn't have to tolerate that.
The other thing I wanted to ask to Rob, I'm not sure if you guys know, is do all the grapes and everything upload after midnight, what you call UTC? So in other words, is there a big hurtling toward that build server around the same time? Because I was wondering that could cause congestion problems too on that side, if everybody is uploading in the first 10 minutes after midnight UTC, but I don't know if that's the way it works.
I really ought to be randomized.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I think individual stations have an offset, so it's spread.
Oh, good.
I believe that's true.
I know that's true for the Grape FL Digis. John has done that. I'm not sure what they're doing for the the Grape 1 DRFs. I can try to look in my system.
When Rob is back, I'll ask him if he has a randomization in our.
Well, I know that Rob, with his own data, just stores it on the user's machine and then continues to try to upload it if it is unsuccessful.
Okay.
Not continuously, but it will take a delay and then try again.
Yeah.
So
Oh, here is Rob.
Rob, Franco had a question for you.
Hey, Rob, can you hear us?
Your mic.
Sorry, I can hear you.
Hey, Rob, I was thinking since midnight UTC happens at the same time for everybody, do you randomize the uploads to build site or they all happen around the same 10 minutes?
You know, I don't randomize the access. In a way, I'm not sure that that's important. I mean, I
If you
was
could do some
uploading.
congestion there, perhaps.
I don't think so because
Okay.
I took a site that had I think it was Dave Larson's site.
Yeah.
And we ran it at a gigabit. We just opened it up and it uploaded the data in a few seconds instead of 3
Oh,
minutes.
in that case, never mind.
So I don't think and there's also kind of a natural randomization of the upload time because at the beginning of what happens is I assume this is what happens on the Grape server, is that at UTC 0, right at midnight, then I fire up, I go and I start doing this translation to down to 10 hertz to create the 10 hertz wave files. Well, that's hugely CPU intensive. So depending upon the power of the CPU and what else is going on the host, the time it takes for it to actually create all the 10 wave files varies from host to host. And they're only up, most of them are only up, there's only 14 of them, and most of them are uploading at 1 megabit. So at most, there's the kind of peak upload rate, if they were all uploading at the same time, of 14 megabits, which is way below the incoming bandwidth capabilities of that server. So I don't think that's an immediate problem. I think there's some other problems in the in the use of the SFTP and and once I fall into a fail to ban mode, it's hard for me to get out. I mean, I haven't yet figured out how I really need to just block it for half an hour and tell it to wait a half an hour before it tries again. So I could put that in as a band-aid on top of SFTP, or I could switch to LFTP, which seems to may not suffer from that. Although I got to believe there's some kind of login process for LFTP as well, and that I don't know if the fail to ban service on that server would detect failures, and we might fall into the same problem. I don't know if how the Grape clients work in terms of their uploads or process. So I'd have to this is an area that this is the areas that I'm investigating. So in terms of Grape support, but everything else, the good news about this is that these machines are still creating all of the Grape data. So if we don't figure out, if I don't figure out how to make the uploads work reliably for a week or two, the data will still be there. It's all sitting on the Whisper Demon Grape side of it. So the failure to upload does not cause us to lose any data from the Grape Whisper Demon Grape sites. It just delays the arrival of that data until we figure out a reliable upload technique. So that's But there are other issues that I wanted to discuss. If I don't want to, it had to do with interactions um, with K9Q radio. One of the things that the Whisper Demon users have identified is differences in the number of whisper spots between Kiwis and RX 888s that are being fed the same RF. And one of the problems that was uncovered was that I had set both of them to create audio 0 to or 100 hertz to 500 kilohertz audio wave files. Well, as a result, there's all kinds of signals outside of the whisper band that are being recorded into the wave file, and those signals, if they're strong enough, can start to can generate a lot of overloads on the translation from 32-bit to floats. I think that's what Phil you use internally is 32-bit floats. That translation from that to 16-bit PCM would get overloaded by signals outside of the whisper band. So I got a storm of problems from the Whisper Demon user groups about the Whisper decoding problems. I'm wondering if there's some side effect as well as and as a result, what I did was I narrowed things back. The Kiwi has a very sharp audio filter. If you look at the filter characteristics, it's very sharp on below the cutoff frequency, below and above the cutoff frequencies. And one of my users did a similar measurement of the K9Q audio passband and found that the skirts were much gentler. Now, I don't know if those are configurable or if this sloping characteristic might have some effect about 888 9Q recordings of WWV signals.
Yes, it
And
is configurable. Although I don't
okay.
really recommend it, but you're welcome to play with it. Notice the Kaiser factor.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what controls it. However, if you make it sharper, if you go to a lower number, it'll make it sharper. However, the side lobes will be higher.
Well, it appears that the for whisper applications, now we didn't. I don't know what the Kaiser number. Using SOX, we would set the transition band to I think 100 hertz. So we would in terms of to match to have the SOX processing of a now we're talking about Kiwis right now. Kiwis would match the JTX performance if the Kiwi was set to do 1340 hertz to 1660 hertz. So to get the same performance by moving the Kiwi to 100 to 5 kilohertz and having SOX do the filtering, we had to tell SOX to use a transition band of 100 hertz. And that resulted in a passband shape that almost exactly matched the Kiwi shape. Now that's I think there, I don't know what the Kaiser number was that, that the transition band, I think maps into some Kaiser number, but I don't know what that number is.
Well,
but
there are probably different kinds of filters, so you'll probably never get them to match. I mean, I use a Kaiser windowed brick wall basically with a block size of 20 milliseconds, which can be changed, but affects everything, so I don't recommend it. I still think you're solving the wrong problem here. If the problem is that you're clipping on the output, then simply lower the level. I've said this many times.
Well, okay, as long as we don't, I could lower the level from 60 dB.
You've got 100 dB of dynamic range. Do you really think you see 100 dB on the air?
Well, well, if I reduce the gain at some sites by the decoding gain, right? By well, if I decrease the amplifier gain, the RF amplifier gain by 10 dB, there's a noticeable decrease in the number of spots. But I think we should have this, the spot number discussion isn't directly relevant to this group. So I don't want to, I don't, you know, want to inflict all this on them, Phil. I just want to be sure that the recordings we're making, the WD, the time channel recordings we're making for grapes are useful to the and comparable to those that the grape people are getting from their grape 1 and grape 2 decoders. And at the moment, I'm not confident of that because of these passband effects I've seen in Whisper. That's why I bring it up. Not that I want to solve the Whisper decoding problem here, but I want to be sure that when we use your code in the grape application, that it's actually generating useful data. And
well,
and
I have my filters and the other receivers have their own. I mean, if you really need the filters to be the same, then just use the receiver filters as roofing filters and add your own if it really matters that much.
well, I don't I don't know what filtering is applied by the grape receivers. I mean, I'm
Well, then
comparing
you're
it to
not
the
going to,
kiwis.
seems
So
unlikely you're going to
maybe
match if
yeah.
you don't even know what the
Well,
filters are.
well, that's kind of a question for this group. Do you guys really know what passband filters are being applied in the grape receivers?
I don't know them off the top of my head. I'd have to talk with John Gibbons.
Okay, well, I think that would be a useful discussion because I can apply any filter. I mean, you know, the SOX when the Whisper Demon grape does creates the 24-hour wave files. It runs it through SOX, and in SOX I can apply almost any filter and any Kaiser value you want. But I don't know what you want, you know, and I don't know that what effect that down convert has and how it's comparable to what you're getting from the grape receivers. Now, we do have one site where we could do the comparison, and it would be very helpful to me if someone could compare the Dave Schwartz's site, which has a grape 1 or grape 2. It's the one near WWV, and it has a grape 1 or 2. I don't know which, and it also has a Whisper Demon grape, and they're both reporting under different site and numbers and device or instrument numbers. I don't know his grape site and instrument number, but both of those are up there daily. And if someone who knows more about this, I'm looking at you, Nathaniel, knows more about this, could go and look at those and make sure that the Whisper Demon grape charts with the wave files and I think Bill showed that he certainly can show the Whisper Demon grape strip charts and so on. He's able to derive them. So if you could look at them and make sure that certainly Dave Schwartz's site would be a way to calibrate the two systems to make sure that that in terms of the signal processing part of this, that we're delivering data that is comparable to what you're getting from the grape sites.
Right.
That's
we should
my goal.
ask Rachel Bodeker to do that. She's the PhD student on the grape project. And one of the things that she has to do for the Hamsci workshop is give an overview of the grape data collected from the October eclipse. So it would also be very appropriate for her to look at those two and compare them.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess I contact her, but I don't know if you think you or I would be. It might have more.
What I can do is I can send an email to her and I can CC you on it, and that can get the ball rolling.
Okay, I think the data, all the data is up there. should be up there on this grape server to look at.
Yes.
So
So yeah, so it's W0DAS's site, right?
yeah, that's W0DAS. Yeah.
Okay.
Rob, I put in the chat the command that Michael uses to upload the magnetometer via LFTP. If you look at the last line, the actual protocol it seems to use is SFTP. I don't know if you see in the chat the full command that Michael
I'm looking
once
at
sent
it.
me.
I see is LFTP. Command equals
No, but
LFTP.
look at the lines from the bottom where it says SFTP column //
Yeah, SFTP. Well, I have to. It's wrapping, so I have to move. Let me see if I can
Oh,
make
I
it.
see. I sent you
Yes,
the script via email too. This way you have
okay,
also the full
okay,
script from him.
okay. Well, okay.
It's okay. Yeah, no, if you're
Okay.
okay,
Well,
if it's wrapping, yeah.
I mean, there's station, the upload token. I didn't know you could actually put you can put the password in the SFTP.
Because he uses LFTP, which is not kosher to me. But I'm a security.
I
I'm
never
a,
Oh goodness. Okay,
I'm
well
a
that's a
security
hidden.
obsessed, so I don't.
I
Friends don't let friends do that. You know what I say.
Okay, well, I wasn't. I took your lead and I removed the storage of
Yeah, and you did
the
the right
site there.
thing. You can sleep tonight. Michael
but
cannot.
yeah, I don't think any of this is there are a bunch of security issues around the grape site, and
Yeah,
I
but
don't.
don't. Yeah, let's not.
We don't have to. We don't
Let's
have to
not
air
talk
the
about
dirty
that.
laundry here. Okay.
Yeah, I don't feel like.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah,
Well,
we
that's
can have a conversation. We can have a conversation outside this, and then I'll.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's been that's been my biggest problem. Remaining problem is just getting the data up there reliably. So that
Yeah.
the other I ran into Bill. Bill has I don't know where he got this computer, but his little computer has only 4 gigabytes of memory, and 24 hours of grapes of 16 kilobit grapes is 5.6 gigabytes of, and
Yeah.
so it's hard to decompress it all and give it to Sox than to take it all down, because there's no place to store it except onto a rotating media or into the wear out the SSD, which
I
I
mean,
don't
the
think
other
is.
thing, Rob, is that not, I mean, all the grapes are created equal, but not RX88s, because basically some of the data you have may have different quality than other data. I don't know if there is a good way to have, the researcher know about that.
Well, there is. I mean, we in the case of Whisper Demon data, we record the overload counts every 2 minutes and add
Okay.
that to the spots. But that's something I need to do with the grape uploads. I think that there's a metadata file that has almost
Yeah, I
nothing
can
in it
help you
right
with
now.
that.
Yeah, I can add more information about the overload event counts and things like that occur. I do see stocks reporting on some sites for some 24-hour periods and strangely on some bands. Stocks reports a lot of overloads, and I don't quite understand that. Why it's overloading. What the wave file overloads occur on some time bands and not others. But but I do get those reports, but they're only going to the log file now. So there's no end of work to refine this. It's not done. But I think that the data we're getting, I think I don't think that the grape sites are reporting things like, well, maybe they can't report. I don't know if do you actually look, does the grape upload process look at the samples, the audio samples that it's uploading, and see if there's full scale samples in the audio? I don't know. I don't know what you can't have applied. Yeah, I don't know, but because it's IQ data, it has to be fixed AGC. So the only thing I could do is adjust the AGC down, which Phil suggests will have almost no effect on the overall system performance. That hasn't been our experience in other sites. Is adjusting. If you lower the gains, you get fewer whisper spots for sure. So I think the dynamic range of these sites maybe 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 at the 100 dB level. I don't know that. I don't quite it's the clipping is happening at minus 14 dBm. That's vector sum of everything that's coming in, minus 14, minus 16. And there are signals at minus 140. It seems to me like there might be more dynamic range than you can fit into 16 bits. But maybe I don't understand that. It's hard to tell. We still don't have a way to look at the spectrum. Without having a 0 to 30 megahertz spectrum view, you really don't know what a site's performance looks like. It's hard to. Phil, you saw there was if you looked at your email, Phil, there was a request from John Ackerman to better understand what's reported by your control program. I don't know, maybe you have an explanation someplace in your documentation, but
what exactly?
But there's at the signal levels areas. It's not what is FE gain? What is what does the FE gain mean? What is that signal box includes both settings and dynamically changing measured variables.
That's right.
So I didn't have any place that again, I haven't had time to look through your documentation, but the quickest thing was to ask you, John sent an email to you earlier today asking this question. It's where can he learn what those values mean and how to use them, and use them to optimize the configuration of his site.
Well, there's always a source code, but I know.
Yeah.
The measurements are always averaged over a 20 millisecond block. So in other words, it's just an RMS value over 20 milliseconds. That's how the measurements are always done.
Yeah,
but
it's more of whatever. Yeah,
what?
but it's what the measurements mean, because it wasn't obvious to me until you
RMS
explained to me
amplitude.
Well, no, but you have something called FE gain and something called gain. And they're both in the signal block.
All right. It's a little complicated there because I have several different front ends and they have different analog gain setups. They're in the RX 888, there's two. There's the analog attenuator and the analog gain. And the ones based on the tuner chips, there's three. And they go in 1 dB steps and they're independently controlled. And you got to be careful about gain distribution. So
I know that, but others, you now have a much larger audience. And they don't know that, they don't know where to turn
part
to
of
learn.
this is part of this. Sometimes I hesitate to document things, and I think I'm about to change them anyway.
Yeah.
Although maybe I won't.
Well, you've got a lot of new users out there of your software.
Okay. Yeah.
So and they're so that's the I hate this documentation part of it too. I mean, I'm in constant, dialogue with people on my user group about how to configure my software. And now that 888's and your software is involved, I try to filter those requests and go and look at people's sites. But there are sites where, like right now, I have an Orange Pi out at KFS. It's running Radio D. It looks like it's putting out multicast packets. For the life of me cannot find out how to receive those packets on that machine. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And
Okay.
and yeah, so I need a session with you, I think, because I've exhausted all my understanding of Linux multicast routing and multicast DNS lookups and such. I don't know why it's happening, and I'm a very experienced user of your software, so
Yeah.
I'm happy. I'm running. You may not realize that I'm running a lot of interference on how to configure and utilize and optimize the use of your software, but I am. But there are times when I'm running up against problems that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I'd appreciate if we can have a session. I don't know when you're free, but we could do something to help me on a couple of these sites and to
Okay.
figure out what's going on and to better understand. We can do some experiments by adjusting the gain structure, and maybe I can show you what's happening. But I mean, my goal here is to just, again, for this group, is to make sure that we produce high quality recordings of the time channels and to winnow out all the problems that are involved in that process long before the eclipse event. So that's anyway, that's I had a queued up in our Signal chat thing, a number of questions for you. One of these is we really don't have a spectrum view, but you said that you actually can output all your frequency bins that are produced.
Yeah, the
And
hooks have been there in the control protocol for a while. It just made some good tools to extract it.
well,
Can you try John Melton's program?
What?
Well, we had
John Melton's.
John Melton, G0
G0RX.
Yeah. Well, we've had mixed results with that.
Okay.
Okay. The Glenn Elmore says that he tried it once and it seemed to work well. I mean, it's pre-alpha code, so we all acknowledge that. We acknowledge that, but he seemed it looked okay to him. But Michael Howen tried it, and he got a 0 to 30 megahertz spectrum that had kind of big boxcar slices in the middle of the spectrum where it dropped by 40 dB. So it, in Michael's case, the spectrum delay was not using John Melton's code was not useful, and I haven't had time to try it out myself, but and I in a way it worries me a little bit because we're now throwing a whole another huge piece of software between us and Phil's code. And I'm a little worried that we may, that I'm wondering, is there a more efficient path to just what we want to see, which is we just want the spectrum. We don't care about demodulation. Here's a stream. I don't know how often you send out, Phil. You send out that.
However often you pull in data,
okay.
it's there.
Okay, so it's a polled based thing. You ask for it,
right.
and you get a whole block.
Because there's so many channels that I don't want to send data unless they're polled.
Yes, that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, you have a frequency bin every how many hertz?
And you
50
can set
hertz.
that. You set that. You create a channel that's a pseudo demodulator, and you specify all that. How many bins, frequency spacing between bins. And then by polling it, you set the integration interval.
And what comes back from that is
series of bin energy values.
So you get we're not getting IQ values. We're actually getting
Right.
bins that have a
If you
frequency place.
right, if you want IQ values, to set up a linear modulator with
Yeah,
IQ
yeah.
output.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think I would love to inspire someone to do this, is to just write a little program that I think it should be little, is it just takes that and puts it up in a spectrum and waterfall underneath it. And just does that, doesn't try to do anything else, so that we're looking
Somebody
at
wants to do the GUI. I don't do GUI, so if
I
somebody
know,
wants to write the
and
GUI
I don't
code.
either. I don't either, unfortunately. So I don't, I'm not a candidate to do that. But to me, it seems like this should be maybe something could be done in, I don't know, new radio or whatever. I'm not familiar with the tool sets that are used for signal display, but it seems like I can see from Tom's excellent work on. I learned a lot from his YouTube discussions, and especially a lot about the flexibility and power of new radio. I don't know if that's the right tool, but it seems like someone who's familiar with it might be able to take your frequency band spectrum feed and create a feed. I mean, once a second, would be enough.
Yeah, I give you, I mean, comma separated values are easy. Just somebody else has to make a graphics display of it.
Yeah, and it needs to be dynamic. It needs to be dynamic too. I mean, yeah. I mean, Michael has created a program where he can, and Jim Lill, WA2ZKG, wrote a script where he sets your radio D up for, I don't, 60 or 80 channels, one at a time, and has some listening program that translates that into charts that he can PNGs. But it's not a real time process, and it looked like he is missing some capabilities that he could have used in your program. But Jim Lill said he got what he wanted from what he did.
Okay.
But it didn't seem that his approach to getting a spectrum from you was one that was more widely useful.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so
But
yeah, you can display the spectrum on GNU Radio using Franco's module and GNU Radio. Right now, the limit is it can only handle one channel at a time, and so you have to channelize. You have to pick which one channel you want to put into the stream, and then you can receive that and do a spectral display or a time display or both, all of those different kinds of displays, but you're limited to one at a time.
But so one display of 0 to 30 megahertz?
One display of a channel, and defining in Phil software will let you define a channel with a lot of creativity.
I don't know if we've is that a path to a 0 to 30 megahertz real time?
It may be difficult because you're moving a lot of data in
Mhm.
0 to 30 megahertz. And
Yeah.
secondly, the dynamic range of that much spectrum generally is better represented by floating point than by fixed point.
Well, I think Phil would dispute that. That's my
I
understanding.
think I actually do give it to float point. It comes out in the status channel, and I think it is a series of floating point numbers.
Okay. Yeah, then the issue is throttling the update rate. GNU Radio will allow throttling the update rate on the displays into, like 10 per second or 1 per second. You can select various values. So it is possible to display the spectrum that wide. The question is how useful that'll be because you only have a certain number of pixels across the screen to display the spectrum.
Yeah. Well, what I set is the bin width. I mean, the integration is done non-coherently.
Right.
And then the integration time is set by how often you pull it.
How often you pull
The coherent bin width is always going to be is it going to be 20 milliseconds?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's going to be 20 or whatever the system frame time interval is. But then it will combine the adjacent bins non-coherently, the powers, and then integrate until you read it, and then it will dump it and start again.
Okay, this is not just a radio demodulator. Is this something else?
Well, this is a pseudo demodulator, a type that I have along with linear FM and FM stereo. It's a fourth demodulator type in KNIQ radio. And it doesn't actually produce any output. It just adds values to the status stream when you pull it. And those values are as a vector of floating point numbers with the energies in each of the bins that you defined.
Okay.
It's a bit kludgy. It hasn't really been worked out, but it was a start.
Okay, I must have missed that in the documentation. I didn't see that one.
Yeah, I didn't. It's one of the more recent additions.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
I
typically.
originally did it for the guys in Australia who were looking for balloon transmissions.
Okay. I'll take a look at that and see if there's a way. Does that come out on a multicast stream?
Yeah, well, like everything comes out in multicast string, except here it comes out on the control status channel rather than the data channel. No, I'm not actually convinced myself that that's the right thing, because these vectors can be quite long, and I didn't really want to make the control status packets that big. So I'm not convinced I did it the right way.
Okay. Well, GNU Radio can display in a chart a vector of samples. That's one capability
Yeah.
that it does have.
Well, I assume by that you mean ordinary signal samples.
Right. Well, so in GNU Radio, you can define a vector of samples.
Yeah.
And so it will treat, I've done that for wideband spectrum where I've done an FFT. I've packed the output of the FFT into a vector of samples and then run that through a vector of IIR filters. So you get, for example, 8,000 IIR filters operating on 8,000 channels in parallel. You can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. The problem is when I generate, I mean, normally my outputs are time domain samples. So
right.
There's no delimiters. It's just a continuous stream. It has nothing to do with RTP packet boundaries. Here, I'm sending out a vector of frequency bins. So obviously there is a record definition here. It runs from low frequency to high frequency, right? I mean, the bins aren't, you can't just concatenate all the bins together. And so for that reason, I put them into the status frame, the status packet. And I defined a new type in the status TLV syntax of being a vector of values. And those are in floating point, which means they're already pretty big. They're 32 bits.
Okay.
And if you're not careful, in fact, it's quite easy to define a vector long enough that's going to spill out over one packet and then have to be sent as a series of fragmented IP datagrams. I think that's how I set it up.
Okay, so right
That may
now
actually be okay.
Yeah, there's no module for GNU Radio to receive that and do anything with it.
Right. Well, is there a standard way to encode a vector of values with a record boundary?
From an IO device, I don't know. Internally to GNU Radio there is, but I don't know that it knows how to do that over an Ethernet connection.
This is what's hung me up for so long, is this kind of stuff. I hate to have to add a whole new feature or capability just to handle one feature like this. I'm always trying to say, is there an elegant way I could do this with what I've already got? Maybe I can't, but
yeah, right now it's just that over the wire, that format is not defined in GNU Radio.
Yeah. Um, yeah, what I want is a general capability to send a vector of values that could be quite long, but
Mhm.
have the ends of it be marked.
Yeah.
TCP is not designed to do that. It's designed to send a byte stream. UDP can in principle do that, although in practice, if you want to send a vector that's too long, it's going to spill out over, it's going to make the DDP datagram too large. It's either going to not go at all, or it's going to fragment. And fragmentation over LAN is probably actually okay. The only drawback is if you lose one packet, you lose the whole thing. But actually, that doesn't happen very often, except in your LAN where back-to-back packets have a tendency to get lost.
Okay. Yeah, so what I've done using the Open HPSDR protocol, which it delineates a vector of frequency bins 16K, and then it sends those in a couple of marked frames, and then it has hundreds of milliseconds of nothing, and then it sends another burst.
Oh, it's sending them out in the same stream that we use for time domain data?
It's a different stream, but there is a protocol for it. So I wrote a block to take that defined format and bring it in as a vector of samples in the GNU radio.
Yeah.
But it requires the Open HPSDR protocol.
You know, I guess I could probably send this as an RTP stream. You use the marked flag bit to indicate the record boundary. I guess I could do that.
Okay, then we'd still need, we still have to then write an RTP module to take
Right.
that and
Right.
delineate. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Because I've been thinking in general, I mean, it would actually be useful to exchange frequency domain information. I mean, rather than just this, I have a more general way of sending around vectors of frequency domain bins, even multicast them, so you can have multiple things listening to a vector of frequency bins that are sent out every 20 milliseconds. I mean, I'm kicking this idea around for a long time, but I just haven't thought up. I tend to be a perfectionist kind of stuff. I tend not to start until I've thought of something that's like the best way. And I know that's not always the right thing to do, but I'm still tempted to do that.
The option that we do have right now is to take the actual time domain samples in 0 to 30 megahertz on as one channel on one RTP stream.
That's a lot of data.
It is. Run it through Franco's module, do an FFT, and then integrate all the bins. In theory,
I mean,
that'll
the
work.
alternative is just to read the RxAAA data directly, but I gave up that capability when I merged the front end into my radio D. I mean, that was the reason I had them be separate in the first place. And I ultimately decided it was just too hard to do that. So I gave up that capability.
Yeah. And it's
otherwise, you know, you would just have another module that would just subscribe to the same multicast group as radio D.
Yeah. My fear is you'll exceed the Ethernet bandwidth trying to do it.
No. I mean, if you use multicast, you wouldn't. I mean, if you could.
Oh yeah, hey, do you
All
have,
right.
don't you have,
Yeah,
you know, a
never mind.
64
With an
megas network?
RxAAA at full rate, yes, you would need more than a
Yes.
gig switch. Yeah,
Yes.
that's right.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need 10 gig Ethernet
Yeah.
to
So,
deliver it.
So writing it
Well,
down, you know, compressing the data by doing non-coherent summing of multiple bins, if that's all the information you need, that does seem like a more efficient way to go.
Mm-hmm.
And for generating a waterfall, which is what you're usually doing, that's enough. If you actually want to process that data and turn it back into a time domain signal, then you want to keep the raw.
Yeah.
You want to keep real and complex format data for each of the frequency bins, and you don't want to non-coherently integrate them.
Yeah. Well, I think what you have now satisfies all of our needs except for this. You know, we don't have a way to see the spectrum. You
Yeah.
know, and base, you have a Kiwi, you know what the Kiwis,
Sure.
spectrum and waterfall views. I find those essential to setting
Well,
up a
yeah,
receive site.
I'm not disagreeing. It's just,
Yeah,
another
it's not.
step, and it's easier to spend time just doing all the little bug fixes you guys are asking
I,
for than
I,
to,
I,
work on something that's
I
I mean,
major.
Rob,
Yeah.
I look at John Melton's program is just one single binary, so maybe we can try to see if we can fix it. I don't think it's such a big thing because it's just KNQ radio. I
that
don't
would
know
be,
why you
yeah,
reinvent the wheel when John already did. That's
okay,
why I'm
yes,
not.
but that's a good point. Well, if I just don't have the time to
But you know what?
investigate where.
I'm gonna, if Tom is available, I'm gonna try to help him. So if we see if we can figure out the whole thing and maybe have a demo on that one.
Well, the other thing I thought it might be useful is, John Milton may not be aware of how important his work is to us and to a larger community. He may have thought it's only my friend Uli and a couple other people are interested in his work with K9Q. And I'm wondering if it might be a good idea to either talk with him directly, invite him to. I was going to invite him to my Wednesday Whisper Demon
Yeah.
group, and just to maybe it would be helpful if he's for him to understand how many of us are eagerly awaiting the results of his work, and maybe he had also because by communicating to him the very specific requirement, he doesn't have to do everything. It doesn't have to have all the features. There's this one feature that we really
Yeah,
we
but
just need.
if you look at his code, I was just looking while you were talking to Phil,
Yeah,
it does
yeah,
exactly that. So it gets a spectrum from KNQ radio, and
yeah.
then if you choose to demodulate, it goes into control and talks directly to Phil's program to get the demodulation. But you don't have to use it. I mean, you can just use the part you need it. I mean, it's really very simple. I mean, I can send you the link, but actually, what I think is if Tom is okay, of course, we can try to figure out, get it to run, fix maybe if there's a bug, and then maybe have a 10-minute video to show how it can be used, because that's something that
Okay.
probably would help to
Well, it'd be great to
help
not
other
add.
people.
Yeah, I would love not to add to Phil's work and let him. I mean, I haven't been able to look at John Melton's work
Yeah.
myself. So
Well, the other thing is, if it works for Glenn, it works for Tom, 2 versus 1, and doesn't work for
Yeah.
Michael, then they 2 win over. Yes.
Well, believe me, as we deploy more sites, we'll encounter problems that
Well, with you, anything that can happen, I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. But it would be.
Let's dig into what Phil sends on the control channel.
They can hardly
We
hear you,
can't.
Tom.
Tom, you need to move your
Can
microphone
you speak
back.
up?
Sorry about that. Let's dig into what Phil has in the control channel and see if we can make heads or tails out of that first.
Yeah. Well, if it sounds like John Milton is already doing that, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So if you look, and this is where, it's not really, let me send you the link here, Tom, and everybody actually here. If you look in this program that it basically is some JavaScript, of course, but the core is all in this program called web.c that I just sent you. So everything else is KNQ radio, if you look at that. And then he added one binary, program, which you run. And if you look, it talks exactly multicast to fill and pretty much everything. So I'm thinking it's almost done there.
Well,
that's what I say. You don't want to
okay.
probably
Well,
reinvent the wheel and everything.
Yeah, I would love to be able to incorporate this into Whisper Demon the way I've incorporated K9Q. It's so that all of these, I've got probably 100 sites now using Whisper Demon, and many of whom, I never talk to. So that means, Phil, you have users that never talk to even me about your use of your software, and I think that's good for us. It lets us focus on other things than installations and hardware problems and specific site problems. But it would be good
I was
to,
thinking we should try that, give it a try, put it together a list of bugs or problems, and then if we can, get John involved, there could
okay,
be, go from alpha
okay,
to beta and maybe to a good thing. Because
yeah,
it's also web-based, so it doesn't really require, to use any graphic capability on the computer itself. You can use your browser.
yeah, you can, that's wonderful. The browser
Yeah.
interface is what we want. So is that his code incorporated? Is an additional C
So what he
code
did,
in?
he created a fork of K9Q Radio probably 3 months ago.
Yeah,
Add one function and some JavaScript, which is already there, and that's all. And so you compile that, and then you have this browser. Sorry, you have this server that serves the video, the waterfall.
yeah. So
It makes
that's
sense, Rob.
so this is just a fork of KNIQ radio, and so that if we could
Yeah,
get him
but
to check
it's not
this into,
maintained, so we probably would have to clean up, or at least update this code from the last 3 months of changes from Phil and make sure it still
yeah,
works. I mean that would be, and I can help with that.
boy,
I'm
that sounds very encouraging.
That's what I'm trying to say. We could
Yeah,
probably look at
yeah.
that.
That'd be
Well,
great if you, yeah.
I could either try to merge that back in, or better, I can take whatever he's added and make it a separate project with a well-defined interface, so he can.
Yeah, but
That's what
that
I'd
would
rather
be. I
have.
mean, the code is already there. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have to be brand new. And you already wrote the JavaScript that we all hate to write.
Yeah, I'd rather have it be a well-defined interface between two separate programs than to be a fork of my stuff.
Yeah, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
I don't
Boy,
like to write that sort of thing as much as some people do. I do
Mhm.
interfaces. I've just been busy with other stuff, or I would have volunteered.
well, it sounds like it's less of a problem to incorporate John's work than I thought.
I don't think it's a bad,
Okay, well, I'm just welcome
And
any
I
help
see
you could give me on that one.
it uses WebSockets and everything, so it's pretty modern way of doing things. It's not like from the from
Wow. Well, if you could help on that, that would be great. And then
My plan again, if Tom is okay, is to try to put together, make it run, and then maybe have a video to show how it can be done.
Okay. Yeah.
But again, I don't want to volunteer, Tom. Sorry.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's up to you, Tom.
Franco, we should explore a couple of options offline and see a couple of different ways to do it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your interest in working on this. I do think it's important for, I think this is a capability that for the Great project that is important, because I don't believe right now that with the Grape 1 and 2 receivers, you really have much insight into the quality of the total system, that the receive system, the antennas and feed lines and ground loops and power supplies and all that. You don't really have any visibility into that. And we've seen, Glenn Elmore has shown that at sites where with those insights that are gained from the spectrum analyzer, analysis view of the spectrum, and an understanding of how to address them and ameliorate and suppress them, that you can get 20 or 30, even 30 dB improvement in signal noise ratio at a site. So sites that are, where people say, oh, I'm in the city, I can't receive anything, it's so noisy, have actually turned into reasonably good sites. They're never as good as a quiet rural site, but you can get within 10 dB of a quiet rural in a, unless you have some pathology, you got an electric fence next door, of course, that's, that you can't do anything, or your neighbor has a solar array. Those can be, you can't really get rid of those, but at least you understand what they are, and without that kind of insight, I think it's there's just no way to understand the quality of the data, that you're gathering. So I think that's one of the features that Whisper Daemon brings to the Whisper Daemon Grape feature can bring, but it needs this, spectrum view to be able to really do it. So thank you. I
It's getting
appreciate
late
your,
here, so I need
yeah.
to get
Well,
going, guys.
okay. Well, thank you for
Yeah,
joining, and I
I'll
appreciate your
talk to you,
help.
Tom. Yeah, take
Yeah.
care.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you both. I appreciate Tom and
Bye-bye.
okay.
I think I'm gonna
Well,
say 73 as well.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've. By the way, Nathaniel, before you leave, I think I encouraged Paul Elliott, a WB6CXE, to make an abstract submission for a presentation about his whisper sound. Okay, so that he submitted that today, and I did mine a few days ago, and my vision is that Gwen has a presentation about the data, what we can learn about from this data. My presentation will be about how do you receive and capture that data, and Paul's is how do you transmit a signal that my system receives and that generates the data that Gwen discusses in his presentation. So I see a group of 3 presentations that relate to each other. Yeah, that I think would be of significance to the whole of the grape effort in the ham side. So that's why I encouraged and Paul. He's certainly going to give me one of his Whisper Sounds 8 to bring with me, so I will physically have one to demonstrate, to show. I can't really do much to demonstrate it, but and although I might have a whole demo, I actually could bring a whole demo and show the whole transmit receive system. But anyway, if you would look at that, if there's going to be, we can do this as a demo or as 3 related
Yeah.
presentations. It's up to you to.
Okay, yeah. Right now, let's see. Well, thank you for letting me know that got submitted. Because I didn't. I went through all the submissions yesterday.
Yeah.
And I have a draft, and I'll have to figure out where to put it in. We're getting to the point where we're getting more good submissions than I have time for presentations, but I do agree with you. I think that would be very valuable, and I think
Perhaps we could condense it into one where or 2, Gwen's presentation and mine, that would discuss both the transmit and receive systems.
that would
might be
that'd be the easiest thing for me to do right now because I have
Yeah.
both of yours. I do already have both yours and Gwen's scheduled.
Yeah.
So, and I'm already running into Saturday afternoon with the talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, here, I'm gonna stop the recording.